Well, thanks so much for staying with Morning Live, and let's get on to the next story now. The Democratic Alliance says that its internal poll shows that the party is very close to toppling the ANC in Gauteng Province. Now, the party says that Gauteng, which is, of course, South Africa's economic hub, is a battleground, and heading into the 2024 elections, its provincial leadership will play a vital role to help rescue the province. DA's Gauteng provincial leader, Solly Msimang, who was re-elected in the same position in Boksburg over the weekend, said that the DA is well on its way to winning Gauteng in 2024. Now, author and political analyst Professor Susan Booysen joins us now virtually to discuss these matters as the country eases closer to the 2024 general elections. Professor Booysen, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina. Thank you.
So the Democratic Alliance says that its internal polls show that the party is just short of taking over from the ANC and Gauteng as the leading party. What's your view on this?
Sakina, when I heard these reports, I really scrutinized all the different reports and little statements that were forthcoming from the DA here and there, and of course, of this Gauteng conference. And how I piece it together is really that their actual statement should be that DA in coalition with its range of coalition moonshot looking for another name partners are possibly close to a 50% if you add them all together. And that is rather than the DA in own right. We have just not seen the kind of growth in DA support to bring them close to 50% of the, can I say, outright vote in Gauteng. We know that the DA is stronger in urban areas, much stronger than in rural areas. Gauteng is an urban province, but I am sure the statement, and their statements are truly ambiguous, but I'm sure that a statement should be taken to interpret the DA with its coalition partners. If their coalition holds, and other parties like the IFP and Action SA remain convinced of the integrity of the DA in entering into this coalition with them, if that holds, then it could be in the mid to late 40s overall percentage support. I truly believe that is what is actually the truth behind the quite ambiguous statements.
And given that we obviously are not privy to the actual detail of these polls, Prof, what you are saying is, with respect, very different to what Helen Zille was saying on Saturday. Like, you know, she didn't talk about the coalition partners, at least not when I was listening to her. She didn't talk about, being able to do this as part of that moonshot pact. So what are we to make of that particular statement as it was put out?
Sakina, political parties at this stage of the game are truly busy with campaign politics, and their statements in such context should really be interpreted with great caution. Political parties want to be seen to be growing, to be strong, to be the winning alternative, because that's when voters really like voting for those parties. South Africans is such a transitional stage politically that voters are looking for certainty, and they want to be part of, at this stage, a new dispensation, a new order, one that gives them hope, because South African voters do not derive hope from current politics, almost not at all. The support in processes have declined, support and trust in institutions are right down. So they're looking for a new winning alternative. And that's why it is so important for political parties in campaigning. They all realize that, ANC, DA, everybody, they realize that they must project themselves as winners, as strong, and so that ordinary citizens can be persuaded to vote for them.
So speaking of the ANC, there have been many predictions about the ANC dipping below 50% in the coming general elections. The ANC itself, Prof, dithering between saying that it will still win the elections, then sometimes conceding that it's likely to perhaps not have an outright win. What's your opinion of this? And also the fact that the DA seems to have zoomed in on the EFF rather than the ANC as the party to target going into the general elections?
Yes, in the first place, the ANC, we know in the last provincial elections, they just emerged fractionally above the 50% outright majority. And the ANC has not been growing. And we, in the era generally in South African politics, that political parties don't grow, but rather get in power and stay in power through coalitions. And it's in that context, because that is a province with such a marginal last time around majority for the ANC, that the DA really sees this as the thin edge of the wedge to unseat the ANC in this province. If there is any province in which the opposition parties jointly, other conditions remaining favourable, could unseat the ANC, it would be in Gauteng Province. And is that this DA is zooming on now. And as part of the strategy, they really have to see themselves, present themselves as the savior, as what they now say, this wonderful blue light of everything possible that's unfavourable and nice, that is blue, meaning the DA in their parlance. And they have to, in politics it works to have an enemy and to present that enemy as dangerous, and then the blue alternative in that type of conversation would be the redeeming light. And so the DA is really trying to project themselves to the voters as the last chance to save the voters from this quote-unquote dangerous EFF. And that is probably a strategy that is anchored in the DA and polling. We are not really given the full picture, as we started the conversation with, generally on the state of the polling, but the internal polling, that what informs their strategy, is generally quite accurate. And so they are definitely zooming in on some perceptions that are among the electorate of the DA, possibly as the alternative to a more dangerous political future. And so it is a very exploitative electoral strategy, probably exploiting fears that there are out there. And the DA, like all political parties in this era, also the ANC then, will be zooming in. They are zooming in on voters, the ANC zooming in on voters who had not voted the other times around, and on new young voters that have generally more rosy perceptions of South African politics, to get those people out rather than persuade the core supporters of other political parties to come over and support them. So it is targeting that is going to be so crucial in the forthcoming election, targeting those who had not seen their way clear to vote in the past, have rather chosen to abstain. And of course, that is where so many other new small parties come in as well, because voters do not really give their support to a party like the DA for that party to grow in own right, but only through coalitions. But voters do not give that support, and therefore parties have to try to find ways and means to reach out to those voters.
So it's interesting because the DA now has a track record of leadership within Gauteng. So if we look at how things have gone in the city of Tshwane, for example, where there has been maladministration as well. They now have Silius Brink there. Helen Zille talking about the difficult job that he has. But of course, the mayor before him, quite apart from Dr. Makorela and all of that, was also a DA mayor. And then you have, of course, they've had a stint in Johannesburg as well as Ekurhuleni, other parts of Gauteng as well. So does that augur well for the DA, given how all of this has played out in the province of Gold, Professor?
Sakina, no, not really. What we've seen through the coalition governments in Gauteng's metros is really that if the ANC and the EFF remains and will probably be, after next year's elections, the third biggest party. And that means there will be a huge block of votes through which that party, the EFF, then can swing and determine, and swing the balance of power and determine who will be in government, as it will possibly be able to do that in Gauteng as it has been able to do in various of Gauteng's metros. And I think it is that kind of likely reality that the DA is trying to discredit by positioning the EFF as this big danger and the DA as the redeemer. So yes, the DA is probably fighting around against this picture that and possible realities that we've seen emerging, illustrated through the Gauteng metro coalitions.
And just finally, Prof, Solly Msimang is the DA's candidate for Gauteng Premier. What can we say about his record as a leader in the city of Tshwane? And, he says that his mission is to remove the current Gauteng Premier, Panyaza Lesufi. But how do you see this one playing out?
Yes, that will be a difficult one to do. Simanga, there are some questions about his leadership and track record. Yes, he generally comes across as a leader with credibility and popular. It's got good grounding in many other communities around Gauteng, and still fighting against Panyaza Lesufi, an incumbent premier who has got so much of governing credibility to go with him, a person who is running big campaigns on employment creation, reaching out to youth, and not in an illegal way, but having so much other state resources in Gauteng Province and at his disposal to help fight a very strong campaign for the ANC. So it can really be the battle of all battles in Gauteng Province come next year's elections.
Professor Booysen, thank you so much for your time and, helping us, analyze what came out of the weekend and, of course, where the DA stands. Author and analyst Professor Susan Booysen discussing the battle for Gauteng Province. As the DA says, that numbers reveal that they are about to take over and surpass the ANC as the biggest party in the province of Gauteng. Feel free to let us know your thoughts as well at Morning Live SABC.